Hi there everyone, I hope you're all doing really well wherever you're watching this video from. My name is Tom McGlynn and I am one of the Placement and Employability Officers in the Careers and Placements team at Leeds Trinity University. Now some of you might know me personally already. Throughout the year I've been I've been coming into your sessions and talking to you about different kind of aspects of placements, so CVs and interviews, placement essentials, knowing your industry, and this is your final stop on that journey before you undertake your placement. So this is the pre-placement briefing, which is an overview of kind of placement do's and don'ts, the kind of things that you should remember before you go out on placement, how to make the most of it, really important bits that you kind of need to take into account before you start. So before I get into it, a quick list of key contacts. Now, you'll know some of these people already, no doubt. You've got Lynn, who is the team leader for the kind of the placement side of the Careers and Placements team. You've got your Placements and Employability Officers. So that's Sarah, myself, and Kez. Your academic contacts will be your placement tutor and module coordinator. Now, you should all know who they are. But make sure that you do know that before you go out on placement if you don't. And then for any of you who are undertaking a placement, for example, in a school where you're required to have a DBS, or if you are looking into placement allowance, you'll have to speak to Yvonne, who is another member of our team, and you've got her email address there if you need to get in touch with her. But feel free to pause the video, take a screenshot, take a photo, whatever you need to do to make sure that you've got those details. So moving on to the next part, we're going to be talking about how to make the most of your placement. Now, we've kind of got a bit of a general guide here to kind of remind you why placements are important, help you make the most of them. So, firstly, you'll be able to develop skills, both technical and employability skills. We call them hard and soft skills throughout your placement, that maybe you wouldn't have been able to if you didn't undertake one, or if you were just working kind of in a regular part-time job. We give you kind of industry-specific experience. You get to decide whether or not you want to work in this industry going forward. But skills is basically where it's all at. So, for example, bridging that post-COVID skills gap, getting yourself ready for the working environment. So, a bit of a crash course in professionalism, making yourself more employable. So when you do go to apply for jobs after university, you can use your placement as really valuable experience. Or potentially the couple of bullet points down, you've got references too. So you could easily use your placement provider as a reference to help you apply for future jobs, which will always be useful if they're in a similar industry. Or if you're looking for kind of a bit of an extra kind of boost to your employability. It'll get you thinking about the future. I know, so I'm actually a Leeds Trinity graduate myself, and then when I did the placement in my second year, it really got me thinking about what I did and didn't want to do. So whether or not kind of you want to go into different kind of full or part-time jobs in that area, thinking about higher degrees, higher apprenticeships, that kind of thing too. The placements are really, really useful for that. So going back to where we were, building your network, really, really useful. So even if you don't want to go into this line of work when you leave university, it's always useful to have connections in any kind of area of the working world, just so you've got kind of like your own kind of personal catalogue of people that you could get in touch with when you leave. So really useful. But when you're out on placement, always remember, kind of that it should be at the forefront of your mind that this is something that you should be enjoying. Enjoy your work as much as you can. Make the absolute most you can from the opportunity. It is going to be an amazing experience. So, please get out there and enjoy it as much as you possibly can. Professional behaviour is something that we need to speak to you about as well, and that is an incredibly important part of the placement journey and the placement pathway as a whole. We have a list of minimum expectations that we would expect from you Going into your placement, some of these you might get to kind of know your employer's or provider's stance on them going forward, but assume that you don't know anything at first, unless you've heard otherwise, and always follow this list of rules. So be punctual. You might have heard the saying before, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late, and that definitely applies to this situation. Arrive at the very least 10 minutes early to ensure you're ready to start work at the agreed time, but also in case you're not entirely sure where you're going now. I mean, we advise that before you go out on your placement, you've done a couple of maybe dummy runs to the place of work. But if you don't exactly know where you're going, or if you are at all anxious about kind of locating the placement, get down there early. Start off as early as you can. It's never too early to be kind of thinking about this kind of thing. Dress appropriately for the workplace. Now, you might find that you've got a particular dress code when you go for the placement. Really common. It might be that a company specifies that they want like a smart casual attire or a kind of professional suit and tie. It varies very differently from place to place, but make sure that your contact at the placement has made it clear to you how you'd be expected to dress. If in doubt, just follow the kind of the norms that you see in the office. If somebody's wearing a suit, maybe you should wear one too. If it's just a kind of a shirt and a pair of trousers, maybe you should go for that. It's completely up to you, kind of how you approach that issue. But we would always kind of recommend that you get in touch with your employer and disclose that first. So professionalism, professional behaviour, respect all of your colleagues, all of them, regardless of kind of whether or not you decide that, they're kind of your type of person, or if they're somebody that you normally kind of wouldn't speak to. Be nice, put a smiley face on, respect them all, treat it as a real life job. Actively get involved with the opportunity, give it 100%. If there's any extra work to be done, put yourself forward and maybe volunteer to do it, make a great impression. Make sure to get the contact details for your employer so you can stay in touch after the placement ends. Now, that's going to be really useful going forward. And if you intend to work in this line of work at any point in the future, please remember to do this, because it will be so useful by the time you graduate to have kind of an employer that you've already got experience with kind of there and then. Report any absences or illnesses, as well as lateness to your provider. Obviously make sure that you've got their contact details and you can do that. And agree any hours and kind of pre-arranged absences or leave with them too. Keep your phone away, keep it in your pocket or your bag. Use it only at break time or lunchtime. It's not appropriate to be kind of sat on your phone, messaging a friend or kind of scrolling through social media if you've got work to be doing. So kind of keep it to social times only. Every employer should complete an induction with you. So that's almost like a little kind of almost like a training period at the start of the placement where you are introduced to the company policies, procedures, maybe health and safety, fire safety, just to make sure that you're kind of in the know, clued up and safe on your placement. And make sure you've agreed all your working hours with your provider too. Also, stay in touch with us. Stay in touch with your placement officer or your tutor, and just let us know how you're doing. We love to know that things are going well for you. But if obviously there's anything that we can help with, please don't hesitate to stay in touch. Professional misconduct. Now you might have heard of that phrase before. If somebody does something unacceptable in the workplace, we would call that professional misconduct. Hopefully, all of you will breeze through your placements with no issues, but it's still something that's really important to reiterate to you before you go out, because we don't want to see it. First of all, here's a bit of an example of kind of what this is. So it is a pass or fail module. You either pass it or you fail it. There's no middle ground. In order to pass, you must attend 100%, be punctual, turn up early or on time, fill in and submit your timesheet every week, complete the placement with all your work completed. So don't leave any kind of outstanding projects. If you're halfway through doing something and the placement ends, get it done. behave and communicate professionally, as per the last slide, and familiarize yourself with any kind of workplace policies and procedures. So if anything was to go wrong, you know that you're doing something wrong. Don't make sure that you're kind of aware of the rules, aware of the policies, so that you don't do anything wrong. If you have any problems on placement, which may arise, we can't promise you that they won't, but hopefully they won't. On the off chance that you face an issue or a problem that you might kind of feel uncomfortable with and struggle with, the first thing to remember is to stay professional. So you're in the working world, you're acting as a professional member of staff. So make sure that you behave professionally towards your provider or any maybe clients or customers or colleagues that might be kind of involved in this situation. So it's really important to kind of bear in mind to avoid that unacceptable behaviour. So if something goes wrong, don't just walk away, don't send an unprofessional email, and don't just not bother to turn up. It looks terrible. We've had this kind of thing that's happened in the past before, and we can assure you that it didn't end well for the students kind of in question. Just please make sure that it's at the forefront of your mind to act the same way that you would in a real job, a real kind of real world working job. If you do find something that you're struggling with, try and talk to your placement provider in a professional manner and figure out a way to resolve the issue professionally, calmly. Any good placement provider will be more than happy to help. Will hopefully sit you down, have a talk through it with you. But if for whatever reason you've spoken to them and the issue hasn't been resolved, contact your placement tutor for advice. Now, the module coordinator and us, your placement officers, will also be kind of on side to talk to too. So you're absolutely not alone. We don't want anyone to feel that they're alone or struggling while they're on placement. So please don't hesitate to get in touch with any one of us if something does go wrong and you can't resolve it at work. Now, social media etiquette is very important in any line of work. Arguably more so when working in something like a school or working maybe on a journalism-related placement, media. So we encourage all of you to, regardless of what course you're doing, clean up your social media accounts before you go out on placement. We've got a little list of do's and don'ts here. So by cleaning it up, we mean that there's nothing on there that an employer would find offensive or unacceptable or could maybe jeopardize that employer's reputation if they were to kind of be associated with it. So we ask that you do make your social media accounts private. That's all of them. That's your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, every single one of them. Make sure that anything that's tied to your name can only be seen by your friends and family. You can use LinkedIn if the workplace allows it. LinkedIn's a little bit different in the sense that it is a professional social media platform. So connect to your colleagues if they use LinkedIn. Build healthy networks and relationships. So when you're online, hopefully you can get to the point where you can kind of, once you've cleaned your social media account up, you can maybe add people from work on it if you are wanting to make lasting relationships. But yeah, make sure that you're doing it professionally. If you are in a photo, for example, or you've taken a photo and it's got another colleague in it, get consent from that person to post it. You don't want to create any unnecessary awkwardness or difficulties if that person isn't comfortable with that. Overall, just limit your usage of it at work. Social media, it's called social media for a reason. Use it in your social life, not your professional. But yeah, it's reasonable to use it on a lunchtime or a break time. But when you're meant to be doing work, stick to your work, and then report any cyberbullying that you see too. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody likes it. If you see something online that doesn't look right, report it to your placement provider or somebody at the university to put a stop to it. And then your don'ts. So don't post anything breaching confidentiality and GDPR. So for example, you're working in a school, don't post anything to social media concerning any students or pupils. It's completely unprofessional and inappropriate. Don't disrespect anybody or use foul language. Again, it's really unprofessional. If that was to happen, you could see yourself quickly kind of ending that placement. Don't post things you shouldn't be posting. Now, by things you shouldn't be posting, we mean inappropriate or offensive content, maybe kind of pictures from a night out if you've had too much to drink, or if you've kind of been out maybe doing something that the employer wouldn't approve of. Definitely don't post that online. And then don't go on your phone or use social media at all during work hours unless your role involves it. We touched on this briefly before, but if you can completely stop social media use at work, then please do it. Maybe over your break times, just choose to converse with your colleagues and get to know them, get to know about them instead of just being sat on your phone, because it'll look more polite and professional too. Big one, employers check their employees' social media accounts. It is a thing that happens. I've seen it happen myself. If your accounts aren't private, they will see everything that you've ever posted. Now, it's up to them how far back they want to scroll, how in-depth they want to look. But just make sure you clean them up. Keep them private. Make it so... don't post anything that you wouldn't want your family to see, for example. Go by that rule and make it professional, and you should be onto a winner. But just bear in mind that if you apply for a placement, an employer may very well choose to look you up just to see what you're like in your free time. So keep it clean. A couple of examples now. We've got 4 separate examples of reasons why students have failed in the past. Now, each of these students did fail their module. Firstly, racism. It's not tolerated anywhere, let alone on placement. So we had one student that posted a comment on a social media page, which they found to be amusing, but it included a racist remark. The employer ended up seeing that post and immediately fired the student. Please don't post anything racist. It should go without saying, but it's completely not on. Another student complained about their work on social media. So they ended up saying negative things about their boss and the company, and they were fired when the employer saw the comment. So make sure that you don't discuss the placement online. It's not something for social media. So an employer could very easily see it and kind of read something the wrong way, or see something that you don't want them to see, and then that's the end of your placement and it's a wasted opportunity. We actually had a student on a placement in a school once who was under investigation due to inappropriate behaviour whilst at that school. Now, in the future, this student can never work in a school again. It's permanently kind of changed their career choices and affected them, and it'll show up on their DBS too. So while working around children, vulnerable people, make sure to exercise the utmost professionalism. Just act appropriately. We know you're all capable of it, but please demonstrate it. And then finally, we did have a student who failed as they were consistently late and absent. On top of that, they also didn't really perform too well too. They didn't complete the tasks that were agreed upon in the student-employer agreement. As a result, they didn't end up passing the placement and received negative feedback. So take those to mind and make sure that you don't do any of them. DBS forms now. So some of you might need one if you're working with children or vulnerable people. If you need one, you should have already applied for it at this stage. In most cases, it should be an enhanced DBS. As soon as you receive your DBS, apply to the DBS update service and keep your documents safe, and let your placement provider, employer know when the certificate comes through. you've got any issues or you encounter any problems when applying for your DBS, more information is available on Moodle, but you can email Yvonne Watchorn, as was mentioned at the start of the presentation, and her email address is on the screen there. But moving forward, a little bit about budgeting for your placement. Now, if it's your first time working kind of full-time in a professional environment, or if your kind of placement is flexible and you're doing it 1 day a week, you will still need to budget for it. So once you've received your placement allowance, it's very important to ensure that you've got a plan in place. So you're not spending the money irresponsibly, you're not overspending, you've got enough money to kind of not be stressed out by extra financial costs that might be incurred by kind of irresponsible spending. If you're relying on public transport or you pay for petrol for a car, it's really important to research how much that might cost you before you go out on your placement. So kind of estimate each day so you know how much you're going to have to budget. It kind of goes without saying. We've got a link to the 19 to 25 student card there, so where you can add money on a card and get unlimited bus or rail travel in West Yorkshire. We recommend doing that just so that you've got kind of a bit of a safety net if you are worried about funds, and you've got that on there, and you can take your the bus or the train to work if you need to. For students that are doing a placement outside of West Yorkshire, a bit further afield, have a look at student travel deals in your own area. It might be that different counties do things a little bit differently, so have a bit of a research and see what you can find. And if you need any help, feel free to let one of us know. We've got a little checklist of questions here that we would like you to ask yourself before you begin your placement. So, pretty straightforward list. Firstly, do you know what your role is going to be? Do you know the responsibilities? Who will be your supervisor or mentor or your main contact, and what are their contact details? Can you get in touch with them in an emergency? What's the best way of getting in touch with them? What kind of hours will you be doing? What's your daily working pattern? What kind of time should you be setting off? What time should you be coming home? Have you got the right clothing for your placement? Can you dress professionally? Can you do you have the clothes that you might need to kind of undertake your placement? Have you planned transport? Have you budgeted for food? Do you know who your placement officer is? Now, you should do by now. It's either going to be myself, Kez, or Sarah. Ensure that you've completed the health and safety form. Familiarise yourself with the health and safety policies of the organisation that you'll be going into. Check in with your placement provider that they have also completed their version of the health and safety form. Your placement will not be able to start without that. It's extremely important. So get that done as early as you possibly can. And then a few FAQs before we finish. So will anyone visit me while I'm on my placement? Potentially. So it's important to stay connected with your placement tutor while you're on placement. At some point, your personal tutor should check in with both yourself and your placement provider to ensure everything is going okay. Hopefully this will happen in person, but if not, it might be that you receive a call. But there will be at some point somebody will kind of try and check in on you to make sure that you're okay. How many working hours do I need to do? So refer to your module handbook is the answer to this question. It will differ from person to person, course to course. So if you do your placement during the normal placement dates, you should be working 5 days a week, Monday to Friday or full time. Of course, the working day may differ from one organisation to another. Some people might do 8 to 4 or 10 to 6 as opposed to 9 to 5. If you think that your placement may give you less than the hours required to pass your module, get in touch with your placement tutor or the module coordinator, and then all agreed work must be completed prior to finishing. So even if you've completed your minimum amount of hours, we would not want you to fail the placement because your work wasn't finished when you've worked so hard to get there and do the hours. So make sure that your work is done to pass the placement. Who do I speak to regarding issues on placement? So in the first instance, If you can rectify any issues with the placement provider themselves, fantastic. However, if that proves to be a problem, please speak to one of us, your placement officers or placement tutor, as soon as you possibly can. And then we can't stress this enough: do not leave your placement like voluntarily. Don't do it, as it could result in failing the placement immediately, and we don't want that for any of you. We know that you can all do it. So yeah, just remember to kind of stay on it, and if you do encounter any problems, just tackle them in a professional manner. What should I do if I'm unwell or cannot attend my placement? So if you're ill and unable to go to your placement, you need to contact your placement provider as soon as possible. So that would be as soon as you realise that you're too ill to work on a morning. The most professional way to do it is by phoning them. Don't do it over text or email. It's not particularly professional. Inform your placement tutor so they're aware of your absence, and that'll get logged. It's important that you regularly update your placement provider so they have an idea of when you will return. And then make sure to visit your GP and get a sick note if you're ill for more than 5 days, and then send a copy of that sick note to your placement tutor. If you are ill, don't not turn up. It's really unprofessional. And then don't contact your personal tutor through social media. Make sure that it's their kind of official work provided contact details. So if you have to email them, then email. But if you can, only email if you can't get a hold of them on the phone. When will I receive my placement allowance? So the university provides a placement allowance to students to help with travel and other placement costs. This will be paid to you before your placement starts, providing you have submitted your bank details. And there we have it. So a couple more useful links, QR codes for you there. If you can't scan them, this will be on Moodle, so you'll be able to click the links there. But yeah, you've got a link there to the Moodle page and also to the placement allowance form. Yeah, make sure that you've registered on Moodle and that you've got your placement allowance if you need it. Any questions, please let either one of us or your placement tutor know. But other than that, thank you very much for listening. I hope it's been very informative. Any questions, let us know, but very best of luck in your placement. Thank you for attending the sessions so far. And yeah, we hope you all smash it. So very best of luck. And yeah, thank you very much for listening.